Delighted to say I'm joined by former Waterford Minor hurler, senior captain Noel Connors at the launch of the Electric Ireland GA Minor Championships. Electric Ireland is celebrating the seventh year of its landmark hashtag GA This Is Major campaign with the return to the Player of the Week initiative and the Minor Stars Award. The awards to be announced will announce the Electric Ireland GA Minor Hurling and Football Teams of the Year, as well as the special 2020 award to recognise the outstanding off the pitch, I should say, contribution of one young minor in the country who has gone above and beyond for their county during COVID-19 this year. Noel, after that lovely long speech, delivered impeccably as always, how's tricks with you?
Isn't it hard to follow up on when you say that or did it? But look, yeah, life is good and it's even better now after you saying that to me. So yeah, it's lovely again. How are you?
I'm not too bad. I said I'd wear the old Waterford jersey for you, just a bit of a throwback. Orgaretro.com.
I'm really confident before you came on. Yeah. Very impressed. Suits you.
Yeah. So get 15% off with the Our Game promo code at Orgaretro.com. Liam, I was going to say, the club season with Passage, you got to the county final probably against the head as far as a lot of people were concerned. Didn't go your way on the day because obviously Ballygunner are a bit of a machine. But how do you reflect on your year hurling?
Yeah, it was a good year in many regards. As in, I suppose not to be conforming to everyone else's opening line to say we're lucky to have a championship, but we were lucky to have a championship, and yeah, we got, I suppose, to our county final, obviously playing the best team in Waterford for the last 10 plus years, easy. Look, we didn't perform particularly well in the day, but we weren't allowed to perform, and that's the bottom line. Yeah, look, in terms of our own performance over the last, whatever it was, probably 2-3 months, not even we didn't get that time period in. But it was good, as in there was probably, as you said, no expectation, but there's definitely an expectation among our group, as in we've a good lot of lads that would have played with Watford at some level, and a good bit of mix of experience and youth, which is always important. But we've been in quarterfinals, semi-finals the last 10 plus years, and I think it was our third or fourth in the last 7 or 8 years, whatever it may be. So it wasn't kind of something that was completely out of the norm for us.
Absolutely, yes, you won it back in 2013. Now, obviously, this is the one that you keep getting asked about and have been all day, not been involved with the Watford panel this year. Did you feel that coming into the championship and getting to the county final with Passage, that maybe there was a chance of a recall? Was it something you were hoping for?
Yeah, you know what? It was something that I didn't even think about, to be honest.
Well, come on now. I struggle to believe that.
No, I'm saying to you, know me now, I tell you as it is. I don't hold back. Genuinely, it wasn't something I thought about. And I think the reason for that as well is do you know when you're playing week in, week out? It's literally right, we won this week. We're playing next week, and so you're playing a match on a Sunday or a Saturday, and you're straight back onto the field into recovery maybe on the Monday. So say for instance, we play Tallow in the group game, the following week we're playing straight into Ballygunner, the following week you're playing straight into Roemore, the following week you're playing straight into Mount Sinai, the following week you're playing Ballygunner again. So you literally don't have time to think about anything other than getting to training, recovering right, sleeping right, eating right, and all those different types of things. So it genuinely wasn't something I even thought about.
And but I suppose actually another point I wanted to ask you about was, when Liam Cahill was explaining his decision, and he goes, the type of game I'm playing in the coming years is going to involve fellas predominantly being able to get around the field. Noel has a long established career with Watford, and the thing about it is there's no door closed on anyone really. But within that, there's kind of a message of fellas being able to get around the field. What were your thoughts when you read that? Or even just me reading it out now, does that kind of burn you a little bit? I know it's an awkward question, but sure, there it is.
Yeah, no, but do you know what? It's the first time I've actually even heard it.
Really?
To be honest, yeah. Hey, look, I suppose that's his interpretation of my physical ability. And it's probably well out there in the atmosphere now. I don't know Liam. I haven't had any deals with him, so I don't understand. Look, whatever. But he won't. He doesn't actually. I don't know him as a person. So it's very hard for me to try and articulate that I'm well able to get around the field, and I'm still in 30, and I suppose over the last couple of years, for the last 7 years, I hope that I've shown that I can get around the field, because I suppose if you're playing at that level, there's obviously an expectation that you can do that, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I would have thought that you're there playing centre back / sweep or whatever role it was exactly with Passage in all the different games. You've all stars in the bag that. I don't. Do you think that in some ways that perception would get out there, rightly or wrongly, that we're playing with a sweeper or something like that, or an extra man back with Tig the Burka protecting in front of the backs, that your job is slightly different in let's say Derek's team in the past than maybe Liam Cahill, who might go with a more traditional setup? Now we'll not get bogged down on the different setups of teams, but do you think there might be something to do with that?
I don't think so. As in, like, even before that, we had, like, obviously I did with Davey, then we did with, like, Michael Ryan was there as well, like, so, like, I had a number of different managers for even play sweeper roles, and even with Derek playing a sweeper, it was always myself and Barry that were left inside with the space, regardless. So, it wasn't as if, like, Tyke sat on, we'll say, the 21 to basically cover myself and Barry. It wasn't that at all. It was more like, as in, trying to sit a small bit deeper and, most of their backs, given the fact that other teams are playing with two inside. And you probably more than most would realise that as a back, that there's, even with a sweeper, with everybody going out the field now over the last, like, 3 or 4 years, your half back line, you still have like 65, 70 yards of room each side of the sweeper to play the ball into. So, I don't think that's the case at all.
Yeah, okay. And but do you feel like you've moved past the idea of playing? Like, are you just happy with your lot now? You've moved on with life?
I know, like, geez, I suppose people were kind of saying that to me earlier on in the conversation, like, if somebody manager went in or whatever, would you go back? And look, I'd never close, the door fully. You see Gary Sice come back at 36 now. I'm not going to go into that category in 36 and come back. But I'm just saying, like, that it's very hard for you to make a judgment at this particular moment, given the fact that you don't know what's coming, down the track. And the last thing you want to do is make an indefinite answer where you might regret it into the future. But look, I'm 30 since May. I don't think I'm that old. I think I still have a bit left to offer. Particularly at club level anyway. But look, it's something that if someone asked me, to go back into Waterford, there's not too many lads that probably turn their back on, their county. And I kind of mentioned it's an extension of your club, because it's Waterford, it's what you go up and what you want to do. So yeah.
I'm not sure how many of the games you would have watched during the league, or if it would have been tough to watch them. But can I ask you about some of the players that are going to be involved? Like Conor Prunty, I think he got injured not too long ago playing for his club. I'm not sure what his availability is like. The likes of Callum Lyons, they do look like really good players for the future, and you've seen them up close. What are they like?
Yeah, they're very good. I think Conor has a bit of an issue with a calf injury.
Yeah.
I think he could go back training Waterford, in fact. And yeah, I think as far as I'm aware, it's been serious enough. It mightn't necessarily keep him out of the match in 2 weeks' time, but I think it was kind of bad enough where he couldn't play or train the last couple of weeks. He obviously missed out on the club. I know it was semi-final and quarter-final, or just semi-final. So, yeah, I'd be a bit concerned about that, because he's a huge player for Waterford. Given the fact that he's also like vice captain now, and he was in the position of full back, and he has been for the last kind of year and a half. And there hasn't really anybody kind of been put in there for an extended period of time like he's been. So I'd be somewhat concerned about that. But magnificent player. Caleb Lyons is probably one of the best players in Waterford have at the minute. Very athletic, great hurler, and probably most importantly, he's a solid kid. He's a lovely young fella, and that kind of, he brings that attitude to the field. He's a great worker, just wants to get in and just train as hard as he can and be as best as he can, and that's the bottom line. And it's fairly obvious with his performances over the last 2 years.
I would imagine that people outside of Waterford probably don't realise how good this lad is. Like, he's an absolute steam train coming out with the ball. Touch is great. There's very little he can't do, and maybe if Waterford had won more games in the last year or so, like, he's not around all that long, but he'd probably be up there among the leading lights in terms of halfbacks.
Yeah, absolutely. To be honest, I can't even remember exactly his age, but he's probably about like 23, 24, so he's really starting to develop. He's starting to bulk up as well, which is hugely important, particularly when you're coming up against bigger, stronger lads. So he's definitely someone that I'd be watching with a bit of interest in the next couple of weeks. And he's certainly like a different aspect, like us in Waterford, we don't really have two left or right backs. You look at other counties where it'd be like, Donny Burke or Carroll McInerney, or it'd be a Paddy Maher, for instance. They have like quite knacky kind of left or right lads, the unorthodox style, which at times can frustrate it forward. So he's kind of someone that's a bit different, and he offers a completely different dynamic.
Yeah, absolutely. What about Austin Gleeson? That body transformation that he underwent in the summer, I'm sure you've seen all the before and after pictures, and you would have seen him in the club championship as well this year, and obviously there was a couple of YouTube highlight reel clips going around the place at one point. Like, how good, how much has he improved? I mean, like, he certainly wasn't anywhere near he could be. Even that red card against Tipperary, that was like a player who was maybe a half a yard off or whatever, but like, he seems to be in an incredible shape now.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose he probably struggled a bit over the last couple of years, but I think he's starting to turn a corner to an extent. Look, and it's not easy. Like he probably got a lot of publicity very early on in his career, and it's a hard thing to try and take on a young man's shoulders. But now, and it was something that I was thinking about, previous to this, like that All-Ireland winning minor team and the under-21 team, all those guys now are 25, so they're coming into their prime of their career. Like I think they were all born in 95 or something like that, and so it's they're really it's the real opportunity to kick on. The likes of Patrick Curran, Stephen Bennett, all these lads are 25, Austin included. Like it's the opportunity to kick on and to really kind of make, we'll say, that setup, that team setup, that their team, in other words. So with that, I suppose, with Austin's transformation probably brings a bit of expectation and a bit of pressure as well, but I think he's around long enough to take it on the chin.
And do you think there's any particular reason? Like he talked himself, maybe the pressure of being hurler of the year got to him. But if he had talked about how maybe he wasn't eating great and all that sort of stuff, was it more of a physical thing, and then that can start getting into your head, and then it becomes, like a vicious cycle or whatever? Is it like if he's in the right shape physically, like inevitably he's going to produce decent displays, you'd imagine?
Yeah, I think there's you probably know better than most, the small margins that everyone talks about, but it's just it's a combination of different things. It's like your off-field stuff is so important, and I'm not just talking about the minor things of nutrition and hydration and exercise. I'm talking about broader issues, like more macro issues, where you're talking about your job, your career, whatever you're doing. All these things have a huge influence on yourself and your own personal world, because going forward, you need to be happy. Like if you wake up in the morning, you're happy in the job that you're in, it means that you're feeling good, you're feeling energized, and all these things start to kind of steamroll and go in the right direction. But if you're not eating particularly well, and you're not particularly happy in your career, it can be quite difficult to eat well and to be very positive about things. So I think Austin now is working with TQS, which is great. He's really starting to eat well. He's really starting to enjoy his hurling again, and all those things are going to have a huge impact on him going forward.
And those two seasons that went particularly poorly, 2018 and 2019, on the back of doing so well in 2017, when you arguably could have won that All Ireland, I mean, you were in a position to do so at one stage during the match. What do you think is there any bottom line to why things went so badly?
I like this, again, not to be kind of sitting on the fence or anything like that, but in 2007 we had a lot of injuries, or 2008 we had a lot of injuries, very serious injuries as well. I think there was two, for the last match, I think there was two lads that started the All-Ireland final in the backs, so when you're essentially wiping out your backs, which is, a challenging, situation for any team, regardless of how many players they have and what standard they're at. Then I suppose with Ford coming in 2019, it's very hard for a manager to come in their first year and have some sort of success. Particularly when he was coming off the back at Derek, excuse me, where I suppose Derek was there for quite a number of years, and he built in a type of culture that he wanted to build in. So for a lot of people, it was a complete change, not in a negative way, but it was just a change of the guard. And I suppose a lot of people then were kind of thinking how things are going to work out here, and the style change, Ford wanted to play in a different way, and all those different things, I suppose, kind of petered out onto the pitch. And it wasn't as if we were training that bad. We had a really good run in the league. Yeah, bearing in mind we had a bad, performance against Limerick in the league final. But other than that, we were playing quite well. And unfortunately, I suppose the championship probably came a bit too early for us after, we'll say, that Limerick defeat.
Yeah, and just in terms of Watford going ahead this year, starting out with Cork, what are your expectations for Watford this year?
Yeah, look, I suppose you know what, it's funny. I know obviously I know all lads. I'm very good friends with them. And I talk to them, whatever. So I know how good those lads are. I genuinely think that they're a very serious outfit. And I think that there's still a lot of experience there where people actually aren't giving them the credit. As in, if you look through their team, from the likes of Sock on goal, always with Shane Fives, Kevin Moore, Porrick Manny, Jake Barron, Cork Gleeson, Floyd Burke, Dara Fives, you got a whole up like Stephen Bennett, Kieran Bennett, all these lads, you even have the likes of Jack Fagan who's playing well, Desi is a new person into the setup, and then you have even the likes of Colin Dunford and all these fellas. These fellas are around 5, 6, 7, 10 plus years with a lot of experience that have played in All-Ireland finals. So the expectations actually quite large in the sense that I'd be confident going into the Cork game. Now I'm not saying that they're going to win comprehensively or anything like that, and I'm not trying to portray that image, but people probably forget over the last few years that things haven't changed that much. There's still the carcass and next of a good team there, and it's kind of driven by a lot of experience as well.
I'd actually tend to agree with you because I think just a win or two and it could set things in motion for Watford this year. That's probably the one thing. It's not like they've become bad hurlers overnight, and obviously the panel has changed somewhat since 2017. But still in all, like, I mean, you were challenged in 2016, 15, I think you were in the All-Ireland semi-final as well. So year after year after year, the vast majority of these players are kind of used to playing at this level. And like Desi Hutchinson, who you've mentioned there, and obviously you came up against him in that county final. How good is he? And like, do you think is it too early to expect him in his first inter-county season to be able to step up? I mean, he was indifferent during the league, but clearly the potential is there.
Oh, listen, look, the way in which Ballygunner play, they play into his hands really. They know how athletic and how good his hurling is, and therefore, like, you know, with a team of their calibre, they're playing towards, you know, his strength, and therefore that's to shows how good he is. All right, so like, if you were to go off that, he has a huge say in the matter. All right, so like, he's been basically over training at a professional level for probably, you know, 5-6 years. So as you can imagine, if you were training at that level and you're getting that amount of, let's say, attention, your biomechanics and all those different things that you work on, you know, are probably streets ahead of where everyone else is. And you can see that on the pitch as well, like his movement and, you know, his ability to get around the field is fairly obvious from, let's say, just your standard club or even, you know, you compare him to an inter-county hurler, it's very, very different. So, like, I think, you know, even though it's his first season, there's still a lot of pressure and a lot of expectation on Desi, because Desi is probably like 24, 25 as well. And, you know, when you're at that stage in your career, you really need to kick on. And I know we kind of talked about, like, we say, the Waterford team that were minor and the under-21 team. Like, he's probably within that bracket as well. He's played 2 years with Ballygunner. Ballygunner have done very, very well over the last 2 years. And so he's had plenty of hurling experience. So, like, I would say that, you know, with Desi, I don't think there's like, there shouldn't be an expectation. There's definitely an expectation on Desi, given the fact that he's kind of lit it up for the last few years in the Waterford Championship.
Yeah, no, I agree with you from that point of view. And can I ask you, who would you say?
I'm getting worried now that you're agreeing with me twice in a row.
Yeah, well, to be fair, you don't always talk nonsense. Now you do a nice bit of it, but not in general. But like, you know what, you would have marked most of the top forwards in the country at this point over the last number of years. Who's the toughest of the lot to mark?
And it's possibly like, you know, it's, you know, I'm basing this off, I suppose, having to do it week in, week out, and I'm not being biased, but Shane Bennett was one of the hardest people that I've ever marked. Inside Waterford setup, like, he was just, he's just a nightmare. They call it, like, he's literally, like, he's tall, he's strong, he's physical, he has like an unbelievable touch, but also his ability to see things happen. Like, he'll see things develop a phase or two ahead of everyone else, and before you know it, he's after shooting like 5 yards over right, you know, knowing the ball is going to go there. So like, he's someone like that is very hard to mark because he's good in the air, so physically you can't get caught out in front of him because he can just play a hurling from behind. And if he obviously leaves it in front of you, well, then he's playing the ball into his hand and he's gone around you. So like, you just kind of have to be mindful of where you are and try and stand on the shoulder as much as possible and try and stop him from getting the ball in the first instance and keep the ball on the ground and try and, you know, kick it or flick it or do whatever you need to do to get it out of his way. Yeah. But outside that, like, I remember marking, it's probably my second, maybe first or second year we played Kilkenny in the semi-final in Croke Park. And I remember marking Richie Power, like, and I was kind of thinking, like, after the game, like, he was just amazing. Like, I would have loved to see him play a few more years with Kenny. Like, physically, like, he was fully there. He's probably 6'1" or 6'2". His hurling ability was just something else. Like, left, right, whatever way you wanted it, you could give it to him, like, physically or in hurling ability. But also, like, his brain, like, he was just incredibly smart on the ball, and he wasn't one bit selfish. His work rate was phenomenal. But like, outside of Waterford, he would probably be the best player I marked.
And of the current ones, you've marked Conor Whelan, I presume Patrick Horgan a good few times. I'm not sure who you would pick up with when you're playing Tipperary or whoever else it might be. So you've probably taken on most of them, have you?
Yeah, like, it's funny, I was thinking about this, like, you know, I grew up, like, idolising the likes of Dan, Kelly, and Milan, and Ken and Tony, and all those fellas, like the Prendergastes. And I was fortunate enough to play with them, like. But then, like, in a kind of a roundabout way, you always kind of idolise the likes of, you know, one Kelly Tip, for instance, and other lads, like. But I was fortunate enough, I got to mark the likes of one Kelly from Tip, like, you know, and all those different lads, the likes of Damien Hayes, you know, the likes of, you know, you would have got someone like Alan McCrath from Dublin, you would have got, you know, Rory Jacob. So, like, I had, like, you know, just I had like a great experience of like, we'll say, the old guard of those lads to like the new lads that are coming through. So yeah, even the likes of Alan Callaghan, a great player. Obviously Hoggy is exceptional. The likes of Shane O'Donnell, all those lads. Like, you know what? And without trying to like pinpoint anyone, I think that you have to realise like that you're marking somebody that's the best player in their county, and that's the bottom line with it. I suppose with Derek, I can kind of say it now because it's not a secret anymore. Well, myself and Barry were the ones that like would have looked after the house, as in like we would have stayed marking, whereas Shane Foyes would have generally went out the field. So like generally like he would be marking like some of their speedsters or someone that was, you know, a goal threat, which was always a great thing for me, as in like I always loved the challenge, and I don't mean the challenge as like fighting challenge. I was never like in anyone's ear and like that. But like I just loved the challenge of going out and marking somebody that was on form and was, you know, seen as like the go-to person, because there was very little pressure on me as a person, because, you know, the expectation was, oh yeah, Hoggy's going to score like 210, and like my thing was like just, you know, stop and score and stop getting the ball into his hand, you know, keep him outside of me type thing.
And in 2017, because you know you got to the All Ireland final, was that a bit of a magical journey?
Like, you know what, it was kind of like something that you kind of said, like we were there knocking on the door for quite a number of years, even before Derek. Like there was some of that team were knocking on the door with the likes of Davey and that. And so like it wasn't a magical journey in the sense that we were not used without saying to sound arrogant, like we haven't won Ireland. Like the last time we won like our Munster final back in 2010. Like, so I don't mean to come across as being arrogant, but I mean like that we were used to getting there. Like we were used to getting All Ireland quarter-finals and semi-finals. So do you know what? It was just an extra step for some of us. Like, you know, obviously it was a very, you know, large step to take, but it was just something that, you know, most of the county teams expect. Like the expectation we're offered as a setup is obviously to win the All Ireland, and it's no different if you're from Tip or you're from Wexford or you're from Clare or you're from Limerick or you're from Dublin or you're from Cork. The expectation here is you're going to win. And like I think the key thing is like, and obviously you take a lot of, we'll say, information from people that have been around. Like, and you know what? Like I used to love. I love the Brick. Like, the Brick was my best friend on the panel for my 11 years that was there. I would have been in roomies with him. We would have travelled together. We would have loads of different things together. But like, he said to me one day, like, it's all about winning. Do you know that? He said, it's all about winning. And I was like, what do you mean? And he said, it is absolutely all about winning. He said, you spend so much and you put so much commitment into it that winning is the only game in town. And if you're not winning, it's actually not worth it. And like for me, I kind of sat back and said, you know what? He is 100% right in what he's saying. Because you're gone out of the house, you know, like 7 days a week to play. And like the only way that you try and capture some of that time back is if you have something at the end of it. Now, I know it's not all about that. I know like that, you know, you get a lot more out of it in terms of like, you know, the minor things of your friendships and, you know, your learning abilities and what you know, your communication things and so on and so forth, and, you know, your friends you have forever and all your contacts. But like when you're playing at that level, like it's actually all about winning. Like, it is like you're gone out of the house, and you would have experienced with Paddy. Paddy would have been gone out of the house 7 days a week. You know, when he was at home, he was probably preparing food, or he was sleeping, or he was, you know, trying to take on water or analysing matches. Like, it is like, for anyone that doesn't really know, and I don't mean to sound like that I know how the answers, but I'm just saying, for anyone that doesn't know, it is all encompassing.
Do you know what? Not to be self-indulgent, but it reminds me of the 2018 All Ireland with Kula, that all this extra training to try and get back in the team and all this kind of stuff, an extra like 2 or 3 times a week, and all the hardship you go through in and out of the team and blah 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 blah. Final whistle goes of the replayed All Ireland against Napiershik. I've told this before, but like I put the hands up in the air, tears came out, and all that was in my mind, and you've kind of summed it up, is thank F that was worth it. That's like that was completely all I was thinking at the time. So everything you said there completely resonated. But
and like after, like you'll probably understand this more than most. Like when you're at that and you don't actually, you know, you don't progress, you don't win, like the sense of, you know, reflection, emptiness, I wouldn't say regret, but the sense of like, you know, soul searching that goes on every year, not after winning, is just, you know, very, very strange. And it's hard, like it's very, very hard. Whereas if you were winning, like as in like if you were the likes of your Tips or you're the likes of your Kilkennys or your whatever your Limericks over the last couple of years that are winning, like Wexford won the Leinster last year, like that's an achievement, and therefore it doesn't seem as bad, even though you mightn't necessarily have like won, we'll say, what you want to win in the All Ireland. But if you've won something along the way, it doesn't actually affect you in the same manner. You have to win, like you have to physically get something, despite the fact that like I'm very much about the other stuff at the end of it, as in like all those friends that you have. Like for instance, like Stephen Roach, midget, who I was kind of marking for a long time against Minnesota, and I'm very good friends with him and his girlfriend. Like we were texting on Friday night, or sorry, we were texting Sunday night, and we were kind of saying like, we must meet up for coffee or whatever, and yeah, so like we met up on Monday for a coffee, two of us shooting the breeze, like, and that's more important, I know, than hurling, as in having those friendships. But when you're in the thick of it and you're committing so much of your time and energy into it, it is really about winning, like. So that sounds completely contradicting everything that I stand for, but the amount of time, energy, work, like that 35, 36, 40 plus hours you put into training a week, you have to get something at the end. It's like, I wouldn't say it's like wages or getting paid on like that, but you have to get something in return.
Yeah, absolutely.
It has to be there.
And then just finally, who do you think will actually do the winning this year? Who's going to win the All-Ireland?
I feel like I should say Tip, like, because Siobhan is from Tip, right? So if I don't say Tip like that, no. I think Tip, like everyone is talking about Limerick, and I agree, like that they're probably the team to beat, and they deserve all, like, I suppose, the attention that they're getting at the minute. Apparently they played like Wexford a couple of, like, last week before last, and apparently they were amazing, like. And even watching their club championship, it was far superior than most. Now I know the Tip championship was great, like, as in, nobody saw, would say, what was going to unfold on the semi-final. But like, if you watch like the likes of Doon, the likes of Kilmallock, all these teams, and obviously the Piershik, and like the level of skill they have. But what I couldn't get over was the physicality and their smartness, as in their ability on the ball, like to play people in, and all those different types of things. I was kind of saying that's a very, very impressive championship, very impressive. I know, like, at the final it probably wasn't a fair reflection on like the championship as a whole, but yeah, that was really good. I think they're good, but I think that Tipperary, to go back to it, I think Tipperary will be happy enough that they're kind of sitting in the background and everyone's talking about Limerick. I think teams like Wexford will be very good. I think that Davey is probably sitting back over the last couple of months and plotting, which he's very good at doing, very strategic, very smart man, and a very good manager. I think that Matty Kenny in Dublin will be sitting saying nothing. He has certainly, like, the physicality, the power, all the things that are actually going to be more important going forward, particularly at this time of the year. So games will start to slow down with the conditions, even though you're talking about like going to Thurles and whatever, Park Queeve and Croke Park, and all these pitches are amazing. But give a couple of hours of rain and see what happens as a result of that, and you have 30 fellas running around for 70 minutes and see how that changes. So you have all these different things. So physicality will become more and more important. So then you have even the likes of Galway. Like, who's talking about Galway in the last couple of months? Nobody. And then you have the likes of your Clares, which are very, very. The only thing that people are talking about in Clare now is like Podge not being above the panel. Like, no one is talking about like where they're going to. But I'd be very mindful of the fact that Clare are an exceptional team as well.
Yeah, but there's no Peter Duggan, no John Conlon, probably. Colin Galvin as well. I mean, there's no way they can win it.
Stranger things have happened. Who would have thought they would have won it in 2013?
Yeah, but let's be fair, a couple of the big guns got knocked out and they kind of came through the gap.
But they were knocked out because of different circumstances, i.e. red cards, not performing on the day. The way in which this championship that could potentially run might be knockout. And for anyone that's an underdog, knockout is what you want, because if you're a good team, the probability of you winning, would say 4 out of 5 matches, is fairly good.
So you're nailing me there now, but your answer to the question was basically you've named every team. So who's going to win it?
No, but I'm saying Limerick. I think Limerick are the team to beat, and I think Galway aren't too far behind. But I'm saying that things will change. The requirements on the day will change, i.e. physicality might be more important, and that's why I'm saying even teams like like Wexford, who are physically quite big, teams like Dublin, who you probably know better than most, are very physical, very athletic and very big. So like those elements will become more important. So like, so say for fellas like, if you look at like ball winners, for instance, their game might be more important than the fella that's in corner forward scoring in the summer, scoring like 2-2, for instance.
Yeah.
So you play to your strengths. That's what I'm kind of saying. Yeah. So yeah, things will change, and this is kind of the unknown because of the circumstances.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with you there. Look, you've been very good with your time.
I'm kind of getting concerned now. You must be looking for something off me if you're saying to me that you're green like to the majority of stuff I'm saying. I'm getting very worried about it.
Yeah, well, I might be on to you again for more analysis. You're not too bad at it now, to be fair.
Years of experience.
Yeah. Look, Noel, really appreciate your time. We'll chat again soon.
Thanks for being saying. Pleasure.